Congratulations, by the way, on your incredible
Thank you very much.
American success story.
Thank you.
I mean, I think everybody's still puzzled at exactly how podcasts work, but
I think most people are catching on that it's basically. I mean, Howard Stern is really the godfather of with that, even though it wasn't a podcast.
Yeah.
But just that sort of like, I'm just going to talk to people.
Right. But no, I'm just talking about you don't have Coca-Cola, man.
We can find one for sure.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's super hot out. Don't go too far.
Yeah, but the studio it might be. They might have them in the studio kitchen.
Hey, I noticed the thing about the debate yesterday.
What? There was a debate last night?
Did you notice the split screen?
Yes.
So here's two people talking to each other on the same stage, and they have a split screen for the entire show.
Yeah.
And I was like, why did they do that? And then I figured it out.
Why?
Height.
Yeah. Oh, to keep them. Oh, interesting. But I also think.
Ever the same size.
Interesting. I think people wanted to see every Reaction. You know,
Trump.
it's such a microscopic.
Yeah, and I don't know if they told Trump because I think he often felt he was off camera. You know what I mean?
There's still a police squad moment. He'd be just picking his nose and scratching his balls.
But it's funny, like just with charisma, like your face never left Trump. Even when Hillary was talking, you know, you're just looking at the reaction.
But I didn't think I was actually
smiles.
somewhat disappointed in the moderation of it because there was really no structure. There was supposed to be a structure, and they would go, okay, that's time. Wait, I'm going to talk for a few more minutes. All right.
Yeah.
Well, no, the time means time. Like, that's it. You should have gotten your thing in before. Like, that's how that works.
I thought 90 minutes was short, too. Thank you so much. I thought 90 minutes was kind of short. I love that moment. There was only one exciting moment to me, which was at the end. When he almost like a child, he said, like, she's not being very nice. You know, like, it's so weird to hear someone say nice.
Nice.
And she's not being very nice. And I'm going to say something. You know what? I'm not going to say.
I'm not going to say. But it is kind of funny to try to take credit for something that you didn't say. You know, I was going to say this really hard. I was going to, because you're still kind of insulting.
Which are you referring to?
I was talking about what he said, like where he said, I was going to say something. I was going to say something not very nice, but then I decided not to say something not very nice.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, okay, well, great. So that's just a basic human interaction.
You're a nice person.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like
but you
she
still
said
let us
it.
know that you're. I mean, I'm thinking it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this really horrible thing.
Right.
Well, it's just I'm almost as bad. Really, it's almost just as bad. Do you think? Just going back to the late night talk show before.
We're not on the air.
Now we are. Yeah.
Oh, we're on the air.
Yeah.
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
By the way,
hello, Norm. Thank you for just sitting down.
We can go as long as you want, because we have to mayor and after, but I could give it. Wait a second.
What? Hey, what the?
I'm just saying we can go as long as you want, because I enjoy this show.
Thank you.
I enjoy all things, but
that's
I like
good.
this show.
Do you think Letterman's happy since he left? Do you think a guy like that can have a pattern like that? You think so?
I've had some contact with him. And I'm shocked because I thought he would not be. But he seems to be incredibly happy. And he seems to be also shocked that he's happy. Like, he thought that he would have nothing.
Yeah.
Which most people do. Like my father was, he had a job and he always thought of retiring. That was his whole goal, his whole life. And then when he retired, he forgot to think of something to do, like he didn't have hobbies or anything like that. So then it would just be like my mother worked also, and was much younger. So my dad would just look out the window when she left, and clean up around and make.
He just
dinner.
didn't know what to do.
No idea. He'd walk the neighborhood and talk to people, like in the neighborhood.
I mean, I feel like you need something to do, something to occupy yourself with, because if you just sit.
No, you can't do nothing.
Yeah.
I follow this guy, Kip Adada.
Yeah, I know who Kip is.
You know who he is?
Yeah.
Right? Well, you got to follow him on Twitter because it's the most amazing follow ever. And he only has like 140 followers or something. So I have a whole bunch. Well, not like you, but, I have a near 1 million. So I tweet him thinking he'll tweet me back. Another comic. I have a whole bunch. And no, never returns. And I go like Kip Adada was one of my favorite comics ever. The Tonight Show, boom, no response. So I'm like, no, he doesn't even refollow me. I'm like, oh, what's going on? But he does these videos and he puts them on Twitter, and they're so funny. he's just like an old man complaining. And then his neighbor is this old, because Kip must be 70 by now or something. His neighbor is an old African American fella about the same age, and so they're playing checkers. Like, who's played checkers?
Because it's the 30s.
In 50 years, exactly. And they're playing checkers, and then Kip Adado will say like, I did 150 Tonight shows. He goes, motherfucker, you did shit. The guy doesn't believe. And why would he? It's just like he's just a fat guy in a bad house. That shit, man. Boy, tell me some more stories, kid. He's like, I don't care if you believe me. I did it. I know that. Yeah, and I walked on the moon, motherfucker.
What was your story? Because your book is out.
Yes, I wrote a
Norm
book.
MacDonald, based on a true story.
A memoir. A memoir.
A memoir.
Yeah.
And it's essentially just it is a biographical account of the strangeness of your life.
Yes.
So what was the story about the Tonight Show for you, about ruining a chance to get on the Tonight Show? Because you must have done the Tonight Show a bunch. I mean, I feel like I remember seeing you on the Tonight Show.
Well, there was the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and then there was afterward,
Right.
But I was living in Canada, and I was kind of at my peak. I'd been doing. I got good at stand-up pretty quick. So I was about 2 years in, and I was really good, And I said, I'll go. Carson had announced he was going to retire in 8 months. So I said, I'm going to go to move to Los Angeles, and be the last comedian on the Tonight Show, and have him anoint me and call me over to the couch, and it'll be a big deal, And so there was this talent booker for the Tonight Show who had a lot of power. And he was the guy you had to get through as a gatekeeper. So, anyways, but he was very frustrating to her. So I would do a set, and he would come. First time I did the set, and he came up to me after. He goes, "I didn't like you, but I was really drunk."
Jesus
so I'm
Christ.
like, "Jeez, man." So I'm all right. Well, can I do it again? He's like, "Oh, yeah, of course. I didn't care for you, but." You're probably funny. Everybody says you're funny. But I tell you, I was really hammered. I'm like, all right. So then the next time, I'm sitting there, and I look over. He's necking with a girl. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, what the fuck is this guy? So finally, he looks at the stage and sees me after, 7 tries, And so then he goes, you're great, but you're not a Johnny comic. You're a Jay comic. People say these ridiculous things that have no meaning. So I'm like, what? He's like, you're more of a Jay, because Jay was doing Monday night as the guest host at that time, and it had already been revealed that he was going to take over. So he goes, you're a Jay comic, and I go, no, I think I'm a Johnny comic. Like that's what all my friends tell me. They always say, hey, you're a kind of a Johnny comic. He's like, I think you're a Jay comic. I'm like. So I'm in my head. I'm like, there's no fucking, it doesn't mean anything. What are you talking about? I was so angry. And then he says, like, whispers it to me. He goes, and also, Jay is going to take over the show. And I go, that was in the paper. Like, why are you whispering it? Everyone knows this thing. You're telling me in confidence, So anyways, he says, Johnny will watch the Monday night with Jay, and everybody already knew at that point that Johnny hated Jay also, and even if he didn't, like Johnny Carson's going to watch the guest host on his day off,
right.
At 11:30. So I never got to do the Tonight Show, but then looking back, like I wasn't really a Carson guy. I just he was like corny old guy to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I took it on faith that he was funny, and I'd see clips and he'd be funny. But I wasn't a guy who grew up with Johnny Carson. I was a guy who grew up with David Letterman.
Right.
So it probably was better for me to have my first spot on Dave,
You got sorted into the right house.
Yeah, without
with
knowing it, It turned out I was a Dave comic.
You were neither a Leonard comic nor a Johnny comic.
I met Johnny Carson after that, And it was, and I told him the story, you know, and he didn't. He just said, we just, whatever he said about the talent booker. But he phoned me. He had an office after he retired, and he would go to the office every day, Johnny Carson. And I don't know what he did. You know what I mean? He had a secretary, and
wouldn't he write jokes? Wouldn't he like send jokes into Letterman sometimes?
He would, because when he died, Letterman did all his jokes.
Yeah,
and I remember watching and going, "Oh, these jokes suck. Like, what is this? What is this monologue?" And then he said, "Oh, Johnny wrote all those jokes." I'm like, "Well, that explains it." Yeah. And of course, if Johnny sent Dave jokes, he'd be compelled to read them. You know what I mean? It was his hero of all time. So, but anyways, I was on Saturday Night Live, and I did an impression of Larry King because he did those Kings things in USA Today. And for those people who don't know what that is, it was little bullet points where Larry would say his opinions. They weren't funny, and it was kind of an old journalistic device that predated Larry King. Just stream of consciousness things, you know. And, you know, we would parody them. He does them now on Twitter. So we would parody them, but they were already really self-parodical, you know. Right. So it's hard to, we had to go real crazy, you know, like I go, you know, yellow is a good color, but blue is the best, or something, you know. Or so Johnny invites me. I don't know why he invited me to his office, you know. So I get there, and it turned out that Johnny got USA Today every day, and he would phone his friends and read Larry King's stupid ramblings. And got a big kick out of him, and his friends would laugh. So he opens his desk drawer, and there's all these like, you know, his secretary had cut them out of the paper, you know, about a 3-inch thick packet of Larry King's News and Views, or King's Things, or whatever it was called. So he gives me a bunch. And then he takes a bunch. He goes, you know, can't do Carson. He goes, you know, let's read some, you know. So I go.
Wait, ironically, or did he genuinely think they were insightful?
No. He thought they were.
He thought they
really
were. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
He thought they were really stupid, but and he thought it was insane that they were taking up, you know, newspaper space, and so then, you know, he would read one, and then I would read one. You know, it's really, speaking of surreal, like, you know, you're sitting across the table, like about as far as I am from you, except it's Johnny Carson. So he'd go like, you know, why is it, you know, I would enjoy baseball if it was 11 innings. You know, and then we'd laugh about that. And then I would read it, and I go, you know, whatever it was, like, if you have to see one movie this year, make it Mickey Blue Eyes, you know. And then, like a few ways through, I realized he'd never asked me to do an impression. So I was like, maybe am I being a fool? Like, he never said, like, do Larry King. So, but I guess he liked it. So we laughed at that. We did that. And then he goes, we'll have to get together again, presumably to do the exact same thing. I mean, so that's what you do when you retire.
I mean, I guess he played a lot of tennis, and he did.
Yeah,
you know,
he yachted. He was on a yacht.
Yachted.
Yeah,
but I imagine that it, and I'm sure, you know, for Jay too, it's probably really weird to have that pattern of going to work every day and having this very structured lifestyle, and then all of a sudden, like,
it's taken away.
What do I do? What do I do now?
Have you ever heard my impression of Johnny Carson phoning 911 when he had his massive heart attack?
No, I have not.
Oh, well, you want to do it?
Please, take us there.
But you have to be the 911 operator.
Sure, okay.
911 operator.
Sure.
So, okay, the phone rings.
Ring. Hello, 911.
Hello, this is Johnny Carson.
Oh, Mr. Carson, yes. How can I help you?
I feel like there's a yak on my chest.
Could you describe the yak?
You can't go further.
Yeah.
You're like my mother. I finished the joke, and she's like, "And what happened to the dog?" I'm like,
I thought we were going.
Oh no!
Because in that scenario, that person would try to be respectful of Johnny Carson, and
You
they
didn't
could
know
just
it
describe
ended.
the yak,
I
even
know.
though they know there's not a yak. Even though they know there's not.
I
a yak.
should have gone with it. Yes, and
God, Norm, I was so in the scene, man.
right? Isn't that improv? Yes,
That's why I don't
and
get acting jobs. You know, no one ever lets me really explore the depths of my.
I was talking to Diana earlier about. I've only been on like 4 auditions in my life. You know, I'm so awful in them. But the first one I ever was, I came. You know, I had very strong stand up, so I would kill in the club. You know, so there was a guy, a casting agent. And he's like, after my set, he's like, "I love you." And they had the show on Fox called Flying Blind. It was Tia Leone, and then this guy that talked and looked exactly like Woody Allen, you know. And the idea was that he was like, you know, nebbishy, and she was super hot. So, anyways, it was a big show that they were just starting on Fox. So they had a regular role they wanted to do, and. So he's like, "You're perfect. You know, this is perfect. This is great. You know, they're going to love you." And I think he was thinking they're going to love me and he kept saying that. He goes, "I discovered you." He goes, "Don't forget that." I'm like, no, I don't want to forget. And then I'm all excited. So he gives me the script, and it's a huge amount of lines I have, you know. And so I'm reading it at home. I don't know how to act. I just look in the mirror and make faces. And then, you know, I like underline one word to say louder than the other words. And, you know, like all the actors.
Exactly.
So I go there the next day to meet the producer. I was supposed to read in front of the producer. I get in, there's 30 people. I'm like, whoa. And introducing everybody. One guy's the head of the network. I'm like, what in hell? And so it was sort of like the nascent period of Fox, not the beginning, but so shows were important at that time. So all these people. So I start reading. And I'm getting nothing, zero response, you know. And, you know, the 30 people are like looking at each other puzzled. And finally the casting director goes, stop, everybody. He's like, can we have a moment? Norm and I, can we have a moment in the hall? And they're like, yeah, sure, have a moment. So he goes, Norm. So we get out in the hall. He goes, what the fuck were you doing, you know? So I go, what? I was just reading the script, you know? He goes, but what about last night? I go, what? He goes, last night, like at the comedy club. So I go, you want me to do my material from last night? He goes, no, you idiot. He goes, I want you to be funny like last night.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So I'm like, no, but I had like this good material I've been working on, you know, for 2 years. And this is some stuff some guy wrote in a week, and I can't make it funny. I'm not a guy that can make stuff funny. And then he goes, you're not coming back in that room, I'll tell you that. And then he just laughs, and I'm alone. I don't drive. I don't know how to go home. And then my manager goes, that guy's real powerful, you know. He goes, he could make it so you never work in this town again, like they used to say in the 30s.
Right.
And I was like, even I knew. I was like, I don't think he could do that. But anyways,
you should still thank him for discovering. You should have dedicated your.
Oh, that would be a good idea. He did discover me.
Well, the network testing process is a brutal, horrific process.
Oh gosh, yeah, isn't
which emotionally feels very much like the Russian literature that you so enjoy. It's a tale of isolation in an icy, in an icy tundra.
Well, you know, when you go into those big stadiums or whatever they are, you know, and the people that decide are way up.
Oh yeah.
The auditoriums, and I feel so bad. I always felt bad because I would have television shows where anybody that came in, I just laugh insanely.
Just to make them comfortable.
Yes, of course. You know, and these other motherfuckers just dead silent, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Like it must have been some power thing or something. I'm like, God.
I
man,
think it was a power thing, and I
easy.
think it was also a, you know, a lot of these people are just terrified, you know, because their livelihoods depend on whether or not they have another hit show. But I think a lot of people are too terrified to express an opinion in front of their bosses because then they're not going to be accountable for it. It's like, okay, well, as long as I have the same experience that my boss is having, I can't ever get blamed.
True.
And so I think they're all just terrified. They're just terrified. So if they laugh and the boss doesn't think it's funny, it's like, oh, well, why'd you think that was funny? I don't know. Please don't fire me.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a lot to do with it. But terrible experience for a performer trying to.
So it's made so uncomfortable.
And then ultimately it doesn't matter because they're like, oh, we gave it to this other guy because he was the same height as this other person.
That's what it usually ends up being. Yeah, you're exactly right. But just the terror they make you go through for no reason. I don't know. I know, like, for notes, there are people that's what they do for a living. They give notes, for people at home, they give notes. For the studio people give notes. The network people give notes.
They're required to.
They're required
That's why a lot of them don't make sense.
That's their job. And when you think about it, what's a note? It's always going to be negative. Like, if you just go, I liked everything,
right.
Then you're an idiot, apparently, even though why wouldn't that be the case sometimes? So when Seinfeld came around, Seinfeld came under the aegis of Rick Ludwin and Late Night because they had him signed to a holding deal in case he replaced Johnny Carson. So Seinfeld's sort of a guy that thinks he should earn his money, and has that Protestant work ethic, and he's like, well, I'm being paid $1 million, I'll make a show, And everybody, in the world, I remember, had always thought, what about a show about being a comic? Right. What I mean? That was what everybody wanted to do. And then when you thought about it, you're like, no, that's not a good idea at all. So he did that with Larry David as a summer show. In the summer, it's called the Seinfeld Chronicles. And it didn't do well. And then it became a hit, and then Larry David, and both of them, but especially Larry David, is very hard-headed and was willing to walk, Jerry Seinfeld was willing to walk because he was making so much money as a stand-up comedian.
Right.
He was probably the biggest comedian at the time. So they wouldn't take notes, especially when the show became a hit. So, I'd hear stories from the writers about how, after the dress or whatever, they'd be in Larry's office, and Larry would be putting, a little putting thing, and Jerry would be sitting on the couch, and then the guy would give a note, like, I was thinking if Elaine, didn't act so surprised at that moment in the third act, and then Larry would go, I don't know. I kind of liked it. What about you, Jerry? You go, I liked it. And the guy go, oh, and then I had a show at the same time, and I was like, I would pitch them on, and I go, well, they do that on the Larry's show. On Seinfeld, and they go, well, that's Seinfeld, like some different thing, And I thought, well, now after Seinfeld was such a success. Well, now they'll go to that paradigm.
Right.
A great comedian, and then a guy he chooses, and then two guys write the show, which was also the interesting thing about Seinfeld is they had a room full of writers, none of which wrote the show. The idea was you would go to Jerry or Larry and tell them a story from your life. That was
right, but it had to be a real story.
Real story.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a brilliant idea. And then they would write it, and I remember Spike Fairstein telling me that he wrote the Soup Nazi episode. And the entire story he told them was that there was a guy in New York that was a soup Nazi, and, that was it. That he was a real mean guy. And so he told me, like, years later, he goes, does it ever bother you, like, I won an Emmy for that Soup Nazi episode, even though you wrote the entire thing? And he said, Larry said, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He hadn't forgot
it. Did you like doing your show? Did you like doing a network sitcom?
No, I didn't. No.
Because of that reason?
I would have loved to do it with that idea. And in the old days, that's what they did. You look at the credits, there's two people. Yeah. And so I didn't like this collaboration. The rooms getting bigger and bigger. So you'd have 18 people in a room. Trying to do comedy.
Trying to tell you how to be funny the way you were funny.
That's the other thing, too, yeah. And how to be likable.
Right.
And I was always like, well, if you're funny, you're likable. If some people, if someone's laughing
they
at
don't hate you.
Yeah, they will like you. But instead, it would be this, kind of hateable because you're trying to be likable so much.
Right.
And people go, oh, this guy's really trying hard.
They can
to
feel comedy is rough when people can feel the need, when they can feel the desperation,
the neediness.
It's all it's all over because they need a comedy. They need a comedian to lead them. The comedian kind of needs to be a leader.
Oh yes. And anyways, the size of the room, even like from a sociological standpoint, I don't think 18 people can work as one. They'll drift. They'll make cliques.
Right.
There'll be three groups of 6 that all, talk about the others as if they're no good. But also, there's no 18 good, funny people. You can never find that, And then what you end up doing is you're like, oh, well, it seems like Melissa hasn't had a joke in for a while. And it's like, really? We have to put it in because she hasn't had a joke in for 3 weeks? I have to put in a bad joke? And I never had like an ego about jokes. Like I would go like, whatever the best joke is, that's what we do. I don't care who wrote it. Like if the writer's assistant wrote it, which I'd always tell the writer's assistants to pitch, whoever, if I wrote it and if I wrote a joke and then you write a better joke, I'm not going to fight for my joke. It's absurd, I want just the best jokes. And I don't even remember any, next week, I'm not going to remember which you guys wrote the joke, I'm just going to know if it's a good episode or not. But at that time, there was so much money that writers were making. It was insane. And I remember like Peter Roth from Warner Brothers studio. He phoned me up and he goes, what do you think of these 2 guys, and they were middling writers, I said, why are you asking? He said, I'm thinking of giving them a $5 million deal each. So I'm not going to take a lottery ticket away from a guy. They were both fine people. So I'm like, no, they're worth it. They're great. Why not? Who cares? Like, I'm going to ruin these guys' chances of having a giant house and car, But that's what busted, I believe that's what busted sitcoms. Rightfully so. Like people go, these reality shows. I'm like, well, it's not like sitcoms are good.
Right.
And then I, during that strike, I just go by, there'd be people picketing. I go, well, you deserve, are getting way more than you deserve. I don't know why you're picketing.
The writers are making a lot of money.
Yeah, just these super rich guys with the beautiful laminated, like, they had hired someone $10,000 to write the perfect joke on their. But I really don't like collaboration much. Like 2 is good, you know what I mean? But it's like even if they were all super talented, it would be like anything. I don't know. I wouldn't call it art, but if you had Picasso and Rembrandt, and that's the only 2 guys I know.
And then another Picasso, Rembrandt Jr.,
Jackson Pollock, and you had them all together. Okay, let's start, and it'd just be a mess. Obviously, it would be a mess. You need a singular vision for that.
But I also feel like,
and you couldn't be noted because Picasso, they go, hey, what's with the nose?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
They were right off the top.
And it is interesting that Picasso is the most famous, well-paid painter in the whole world, and you would think that's a niche painter. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's very strange to me. You'd think it would be Rembrandt, or you'd think it'd be a realist.
Yeah, but it was just that style. But he was also amazing at that as well. But he just
he was. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
It's just this style that have developed over time.
Oh, I didn't know
sort
that.
Of became that. Yeah.
Oh, so he was like an expert, like they always say with any type of art. You got to learn how to do it properly
before you can. Yeah, exactly.
Before you can deconstruct
it. But I think. But in your case, just as a comedy fan, I feel like your voice is so specific. I can't imagine someone writing for you because you see when I think of comics that I adore, that I think like someone like Maria Bamford, I'm like, you can't write for Maria. She's just that's just how that's just her voice. It's just the kind of the voices in her brain sort of make that happen. I mean, I still remember. I still have this thing in my head that you said, and I must have seen it 25 years ago, but it was something to the effect of, them's mean streets if you're a wiener dog in a cardigan.
Jesus.
Yeah. So I can't.
back.
How could you tell someone to write that?
That's going back, baby.
That's going back quite a ways. That's going back.
When I met Gary Shandling, there are some jokes, because I've always loved stand-up comedy. I've sort of been a student, of it, And when I met Gary Shandling, there was a joke that he did that was so mysterious to me how he wrote this joke. And the joke was, he says, so anyways, I'm dating Miss Georgia. All right, it's the former Miss Georgia. Okay, it's George Foreman. So I was like, how did you do that? Like, how did you reverse engineer it from George Foreman? Or it seemed like divine to me somehow. Or divinely inspired.
What did he say?
He said, I don't fucking know. What are you talking about? It was before he became like the Zen, teacher. He was just like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't know. He used to be so funny off stage. I remember one time the G spot, He's like, have you heard about this G spot, Norm? I go, yeah, I heard about it. And he goes, Jesus, I don't know how to find these fucking... He goes, I wouldn't even know how to find a guy's balls. So he's just so fucking funny in person. And then later he became sort of a Zen, like, teacher of... not teacher, but, he was... To all the young comics, he would sort of... be very kind, and it was nice to see,
Well, Judd Apatow was saying that he was so meticulous that he had these notebooks which were just intense, almost mathematical deconstructions of comedy and how jokes work and why this is funny and why that's not funny and the dynamics of a room.
Yeah.
I mean, he really seemed to be an actual student of the science
of the science of it,
science of comedy.
But I saw Seinfeld did a thing in the New York Times where it shows how he made a joke from nothing. And I don't like that.
You don't like it?
No, I don't like that. And I knew Gary real well, and I wouldn't speak ill of Gary. I mean, he was one of the best comics that ever lived. But that idea of mathematically understanding comedy, I know that it's not an art, because the reason I know it's not an art is because an art can be interpreted different by you and by me.
Sure.
But if you go and do stand-up, you have to make a noise. You have to make the audience make a noise all together, all at the same time. So then it's craft. It's not art, because people can't go, I like that part, I like that, because then people would be laughing all at different parts, you know what I mean? It would be jumble.
But on a larger scale, though, when you take comedy out of that intimate situation, that does happen, though. People go, oh, I heard about this thing, that wasn't funny, or I saw this thing and that wasn't funny.
Oh,
especially
sure.
with the internet now.
But it's either not funny or funny.
Right.
Like,
there's only one or two.
Like funny
it's very binary
way.
that way.
Yeah. And so this idea of arithmetically deconstructing comedy, I think, there was that famous quote by Mark Twain, and I'm going to blow it, but he says, dissecting comedy is like dissecting a frog at the end. Nothing of interest except you got a dead frog.
Right.
So,
well, that's the Steve Martin thing of from what I understand of his early stand-up was that, he wanted things to be funny, but you never knew exactly why they were funny. They were just funny. Is that?
Yeah. I mean, I remember he said, if he was worried about writing a movie, he didn't know if he could write a movie. And I don't know who told him, maybe it was Carl Reiner, but he said, you're funny, so just write a movie, and then the movie will be funny. And he said that was very simple, but it was an epiphany to him that he was like, yeah, I can be confident that whatever I do will be funny because I'm funny. And so that made a lot of sense to him. His book, the only thing that bothered me about his book...
Born Standing Up? Yeah.
Born Standing Up, which I thought was a fantastic book, except for what you were talking about, he shows his early jokes, and there are these great jokes from his album, and I know they were his early jokes. Like,
Oh, right, because they were on the album, right?
Yeah, they were like fantastic.
What were
jokes.
his early
That's
jokes?
what I would love to see.
Yeah.
But of course, who would have the balls to put those out? You know what I mean? I have a tape of my fourth time on stage.
Have you ever played it anywhere?
Well, just for myself. They had it in Ottawa. This guy, the manager, taped it. I did an hour.
Oh my God! Your fourth time?
Yeah,
Holy
fourth
shit!
time on stage. I did amateur night one night.
Was this at a Yuck Yucks?
Yuck Yucks.
Yeah.
There's only 2 comedians in Ottawa where I started, so I was very lucky. So I went from amateur night to headliner in a month.
Holy shit!
So, but it was all awful, you know. So he had it, and I was like, I got to get it, you know. So he had some vault or something, you know, this precious thing to him. And so I said, I got to get it. You know, they just made up something. I go, they're doing a documentary on me, and then they want to talk to you. And then I just made up a whole bunch of stuff to make him think that he'd be on TV. I go, they want to talk to you, but they need that like for, you know, early to get it in a can. You know, just saying all this nonsense words, you know, that I think will impress him. So I get the tape, and I not only I watch it once, and I destroyed it. I didn't even keep it.
You destroyed it?
Oh, it was so awful. You know, that's why I'm saying if I had the balls, I would say here are the jokes, because to show people, you know, you can be a stand-up. You know, you could be a great stand-up like Steve Martin, even though these were his real first jokes.
Right.
And you just see these terrible jokes because everybody's first jokes are terrible. You know?
Yes.
That's just. And so I think that would help a comic, you know, instead of when they read like, whoa, that was Steve Martin's first bit was, you know, let's get small. That was his
he just sat down
time
and
on
wrote
stage.
that? That's very specific. But you said, in the, you know, with the book, there were some bullet points that got sent over the book. Like, oh, you know, Norm tells a lot of these stories in the book about the time he, disastrous appearance on Star Search. But I had remembered your Star Search, and I went back and watched it again, and it wasn't disastrous.
Oh, what?
It wasn't disastrous. First of all, you only had 2 minutes,
Yeah, 2
which was a
minutes.
ridiculous.
Isn't that an insane
That is
short amount?
ridiculous.
Yeah, they run it backwards from 2 minutes.
2 minutes to do stand up, but I thought the jokes were
No,
good.
the jokes were all right. The jokes were fine.
And I thought the crowd reacted.
Oh God! Did you see the guy after me?
No, I just saw your clip. Who was the guy after you?
The Bushman.
I don't.
He was a Liberian.
Okay.
Although later, someone told me he was from Seattle. But and he wore a long, flowing robe, and you know, he had a hat. It was called International Star Search. So I was from Canada, the least international country, and then he's from Liberia, and
Well, you're from Quebec City, so that's a little more international, right?
yes,
Okay.
if I had any jokes about that.
Okay.
But all my jokes were about domestic American affairs. So, which at first I thought would be stupidly, I thought would be an advantage, you know. But then, of course, later I realized, no, they want an international guy. But, oh, no, it didn't go well. I remember when Ed came out, he almost laughed like he said, another tough decision for our judges, and people were laughing, and Ed, thank God, didn't laugh. My favorite moment on it, and I can't find it anywhere, was you get to talk to Ed McMahon. So after it was horrible for me, but I walked over and I get to talk to Ed McMahon, which was what I was looking forward to like crazy. And when you're standing beside Ed McMahon, you kind of feel like Johnny Carson, you know, and you know he's the perfect statement. But he can ask you a question, you don't know what it is. So he said, now, Norm, you're from Canada, and tell me, what do you find are the differences between Canadian audiences and American audiences? So I go, I feel that the American audiences have better shoes. So he laughs like crazy at that. And then he goes, we will return with our international spokesperson right after this. Shoes.
That was just the last word. His brain was probably
Exactly.
like an alcohol rag, just soaked at that point.
I felt so
spit
good,
out.
though. When I did my first Letterman, I felt it was funny, because so much fluke is involved in show business,
right?
So much luck, and so I did Catch a Rising Star to do my audition for David Letterman, and I destroyed like I've never destroyed before, And so I get off, and Robert Morton, who booked the show at the time, he was like, "That was great." He goes, "I never do this, but I'm putting you on the show now." He made a big point of how he never did that, and this was the first time, and he was going to put me on the show, and everything was perfect. And so I had a teensy-weensy tape recorder. I had taped my set on, And he goes, "Just do that exactly what you did, So I go, I can't do that because I've got it on my recorder. So I go back to Toronto. It was like a 2-month gap. Every single night, I was worried about it getting too rote, But every single night I do the exact same, until it's just burnished in my brain. And then, so I come back, and then the way it works is you go and you do a set the night before, to warm up. He takes you around the area. So we went to the exact same club, Catch a Rising Star. I go on, and I bomb. Like, no one laughs at all. So I get off. I don't care because I'm already going to go on Letterman. I'm completely confident in the material, But Robert Morton's in a panic. So he goes, "Why'd you change it?" He goes, and it was word for word. He goes, "Why'd you change it?" So I was thinking, like, should I take out the tape recorder, which I have, and play it for him? But I felt like I was dead, so I go, "Yeah, I changed it around."
I'll change it back.
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, he goes, no, that was stupid." I go, "No, I know, Bob, but I just felt to move things around, new jokes." "No." So then I go on the show. I do the exact same set again, and it kills. So, if I had bombed the first time, forget about it.
Did he notice when you went on Letterman? Was he like,
no,
he didn't notice at all?
No. Like, these guys go like, "We don't care how you do." Like in the, go see you at Catch, and if you bomb, we don't care. We can see through that. And it's utter nonsense.
Yeah, of course. They get super nervous because they don't want to get.
It makes like they're going to say, "That guy that got no laughs, perfect. He'll be perfect for the show."
Did you immediately become pals with Letterman after the first time, or did you have to go on a few times?
What do you mean by pals? I was never.
I thought you guys were friends.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
you went on the.
No, I was never friends with David Letterman.
Oh, I just had this. I just had the. Just going on his last week of shows. I just assumed.
We had he talked to me, which I felt was nice, between commercials, which he never did with anyone else, And he was so funny, so incredibly funny, what he'd say between the commercials, and sweet to me and stuff. And he would invite me to these dinners, which I really should have gone to. But I felt like I was on the show so often, and every time I was on the show, I had my little, in between the commercial thing to talk to him, and those were my favorite times, and he'd say anything, you know what I mean? It was like swearing, and I remember I reminded him of a joke because I knew everything about him, because I'd watched him since I was a kid, and he did this joke, and that was so. I said, "Remember this joke?" And I told him. He goes, that joke will get audible gasps from the audience because it was such a rough joke.
Yeah,
but it was so hilarious, and what it was Paul Newman's son had died. So it said on the front of the National Enquirer, it said, so this is how Letterman told the joke. He goes, "So I saw the National Enquirer this week, and it said, 'Why Paul Newman does not like to talk about his dead son.'" Boy, there's a puzzler, huh, folks? There's Paul Newman sitting around his swimming pool with his other Hollywood stars, and somebody says, "Oh, by the way, Paul, how's that dead boy of yours doing?" Say, I don't like talking about that. Now I hope to God he doesn't hear that. And then I heard him do it on our show, and he said, why he changed it to why famous movie star, which I probably should have done.
That's all right. Paul Newman's dead.
That's okay. That's true.
It's totally fine.
You're right.
It's totally fine. There's some descendant of Paul Newman, and you're like, wait a minute.
I actually have another story about that, Paul Newman, because I watched Larry King once. This was the strangest thing I ever saw a guy say. But Larry King has this weird thing where he's sort of psychotic. I'm going to go be interviewed by Larry King. But he's sort of like he's seen it all and nothing affects him, kind of. And so he was talking to a person who had lost their child, like 8 months earlier or something, and they were saying how hard it was. And then he says, Paul Newman told me you never get over it. I'm like, what did he just say to this grieving parent? Like, yeah, it was name dropping. It was exactly. It was name dropping.
It's a name drop.
I never thought of that. It was name dropping.
No hope whatsoever.
Right. You're right. That was the reason he did it. I was wondering why he would make such a psychotic statement, but he was just name dropping.
He could have just said,
"Never get over it."
I heard you never get over it.
Well, even that. That's the bad part. He could have just said, "I know Paul Newman."
I know Paul Newman, and your child is still dead. We'll be right back after these. That's a terrible.
Oh, just awful. I can't believe I told 2 stories.
Those are both great stories, though. Those are both great stories. I was looking. I saw the. I saw some.
Do you remember the last time I think we met? You were. This is why it's incredible. Your success is not incredible.
No,
you've worked hard and you've made this amazing. American success story. But you were, when I last saw you, it was the roast.
Yes.
And you were interviewing people coming out of the roast.
I remember.
And I had done...
a Saget roast.
A Saget roast. And I guess you didn't watch the roast because I had done like just cheesy jokes.
I saw that part, was the only part I saw of the roast. Because they had me back.
Oh, you did
sitting in the audience for the index cards. And the
you did?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I was worried that you hadn't seen that. And I was like freaked out when you were there asking post-show questions.
No, yeah.
You didn't ask pre-show questions, did you?
No, they had me on the carpet for the arrivals. And then they had me talking to people afterwards. And
now, did you like that?
Did I like the show?
No, doing that.
Well, it was. I love Bob. I've been friends with Bob. I've been friends with Bob for almost 20 years.
So you only did it for that one show?
No, at the time I would have done it anyway because I was, it was like my career had dipped at that point, and so if anyone asked me to do anything, I would have done it. But I also. I'm comfortable talking and hosting, and I like hosting, and so especially because of Bob and because it was Comedy Central.
Sure,
I'm like
sure.
And I don't do that stuff anymore. Like I don't do red carpet stuff anymore. But
before you created this empire, you were sort of in a category with Ryan Seacrest.
I would say that's accurate.
And with Carson Daly.
Yeah,
guys that. We're broadcasters and hosts.
Which for me the hard thing was that I'm first and foremost I've always been a comedian, and so it's so
that's what I'm saying. A lot of comedians would
trade-off.
not like to
exactly because people go, oh, you're a host, and even still. It's only been like the last couple of years where I, when I perform, people go, oh, I didn't know you did stand-up.
Right.
Yeah, I've been doing that for like 20 years.
Oh, I get that all.
You get that? How do you get that?
Because I'm just seen as the guy that was on SNL, or maybe the guy that got fired from SNL. I just get pigeonholed, but I don't mind pigeonholing. Like I understand pigeonholing, someone, what I mean?
Yeah.
Because one time I worked at an insurance company, and there was a guy that was the underwriter, and I was the lowest guy, and I came in, and I was eating a donut with sprinkles on it, right? And he's like, what are you doing? What's your donut? And I go, just a sprinkly donut. He goes, oh, yeah, you like them, huh? And he was the rest of the entire time. I was there 6 months. He's like, hey, you got a sprinkly donut today? I'm like, no. He goes, hey, sprinkly donut guy. And I'm like, why are you... That was being pigeonholed unfairly.
Well, that's just laziness.
Yeah.
That's because he doesn't want to have a conversation. He just wants to identify you quickly.
Yeah.
And also, he knows that conversation can't go any further. Because you can only either say yes or no, I have a donut, or I do not have a donut.
That's very good.
There's almost a Schrodinger-esque. You're in one of two states at any given moment until observed. You have a sprinkly donut or you do not have a sprinkly donut. And that's the entire experiment. So that guy was just being lazy. Schrodinger-esque. That guy was just being fucking lazy. Yeah. It is, I I know it's kind of charming to be like, hey, there's the guy with the pants. Hey, look at you. Hey, glasses. But if that's every day,
glasses with every single person.
like, all right, have a conversation with the person.
Come on, man.
But I
have many more facets.
Well, I loved the index card thing, and all the other comedians who were in the audience were folded over.
Well, some were. Like, if you see the tape of it, there are some comedians, that are clearly later to the joke than the others.
Right.
And I don't know if Jim Norton was ever there. Because he was looking confused and all that. And then when he got up, he said something. He said, watching your set was like watching Henry Fonda pick blueberries, which I didn't understand. So I said, I don't think anybody would. I think everyone in the world would enjoy watching Henry Fonda pick blueberries, because I didn't understand the joke. Apparently, it was from On Golden Pond or something,
right?
That he had, but but afterwards he was like, "What the fuck was that?" So
I like a semantic, logical argument about it. Actually, I think people. First of all, it would mean he's alive again,
yes,
which
exactly.
would be remarkable for humanity that resurrection exists. Secondly, blueberries are delightful.
Yeah, and because I hadn't seen the movie, it was such a Schrodinger-esque thing.
Saget adores you more. I mean, like.
Well, I know you and Bob are close. I mean, he's such a sweet guy.
He is. We haven't really hung out as of late, but I remember early on. I think before, because I hung out near you a couple times with Bob.
Yeah,
but
we hung out.
I was always just sort of quiet because I was kind of awestruck and nervous.
Oh, really? That's strange.
Yeah, and
I remember us upstairs at the Laugh Factory.
Yeah.
I didn't notice any nerves from you or anything.
Oh, I just always felt like I don't have anything interesting to say to these people.
Well, that's weird.
They're all people that I adore and respect comedically.
But Bob was so good with young comics.
He's just a sweet guy.
Yeah, he's just great. And just that, especially for that era, that's very rare, because those guys were. Nowadays, my son and his friend, they just. Everyone's supportive of everyone,
right?
You know what I mean? I don't know if that's good or not. Like Saturday Night Live, Lauren on purpose. He has a bowl of dog food and 14 dogs.
He makes everyone compete.
And that's enough for one dog. The amount of food he's doled out. So he believes that competition, capitalism, will produce the best, not collectives,
right?
Not communism. And I'm inclined to agree with that, because again, I don't like to collaborate. And on Saturday Night Live, you could write a sketch completely by yourself, which is what I always do. I never collaborated with anybody. I would help them do their sketches,
sure,
but if I had an idea, I would never let anybody touch it.
So did you do Weekend Update all by yourself?
Oh, no, not Weekend Update. No. These were just sketches.
Gotcha.
No, Weekend Update, it's too hard to write that many jokes by yourself. But what I did do is, Weekend Update had always been lazy before that. They just did it on Saturday. Believe it or not, they did it on Saturday. And everybody would sit around and eat bagels and think up jokes. And a lot of them were picture jokes, because Dennis liked just pointing at a picture and going, check this. So they had a whole millions of pictures, and you go like this, and so anyways, it was kind of just sloppily done, I thought, and so there were always people sending in jokes, and so I asked Lauren, can I just hire a couple of guys? There was a guy named Herb Sargent, and he had written Update for every anchor up till me, and I said, Lauren, can I fire? So Lauren goes, if you're going to shoot, you have to shoot to kill. Like, Lauren always said these mysterious things. So I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, let's shoot to kill, man. And he's like, okay, if that's what you want. So I got Jim Downey, who was kind of the genius of Saturday Night Live, and had just been fired as the head writer of the show. So I was very lucky, So I got him to come on Update. And Herb Sargent, who was supposed to be fired, just shows up. Lauren never fired him.
Oh, shit.
So I'm hiding, whenever I see Herb Sargent, I'm ducking behind like pillars and stuff like that. And he's going to the fax machine, getting and the copy machine, changing his jokes because he would write like all the jokes. But and Lauren, Herb Sargent was a guy who gave Lauren his first job or something.
Oh.
And Lauren's very loyal. So so finally, one day, finally didn't show up. I don't know who finally had the courage to tell him. But it happened a lot. Like, did you ever remember a comic named Warren Hutcherson?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very funny African-American comedian. And so he was a writer. So, of course, all the comedians want to be performers, So Jim Downey was the head writer. He was second in command, and Lauren was first in command, of course. So Warren said, I can't stay on the show. And as a writer, I want to be a performer. So Jim goes, well, that's great by me. You're so funny. You should be a performer. Just get Lauren's permission. So he goes to Lauren. Then Lauren's like, I always thought you were more a performer than a writer, frankly, Warren. So, yes. Did you get Jim's permission? He's like, oh, yeah. He told me to come here. He goes, just solidify it with Jim. And then he went, So he goes back to Jim, and he goes, he said to solidify it with you? And Jim said, oh, yeah, it's fine with me. As long as you get Lauren, He's like, so he goes back to Lauren, he goes, yeah, Jim said it's solidified. He goes, okay, good, then, then you're a performer. But just get Jim to just get him to sign off.
Shit.
So Warren said this happened, and so he said to Jim, like, can you come into Lauren's office, like, with him, And Jim's like, I know, So it's nice about Lauren, but because I am the same way. I cannot fire anyone.
I think you should have done it. I think it should have just been a random weekend update at the very end. And as we're wrapping up the show tonight, I'd just like to thank Herb Sargent. It's his last show.
Well, no, probably should have. I mean, you say it, but it
you actually could have, but you were actually firing him on the show.
I'm just firing him on the show. I see what you mean. Yeah. He doesn't know. He's
just taking him out. Big hand for Herb, everyone. Thank you so much. Because then how can he come back after that?
That's a good idea.
It'd be really weird.
And also, he should have had that. He worked on the show since its inception. And so anyways, I found, the writers on the show were pretty lazy, and I wanted Update to be its own thing. And so I wanted outside guys, So people would fax all the time, and I read every joke like OCD, even if the first, 100 were bad. I remember a guy used to send 100 jokes a day, every single day. And they were almost jokes, but never funny enough. And I was like, I told Lauren, I said, should I phone this guy and tell him to stop? When is it your duty to tell someone to stop following their dream, Because it's very hard to write. It's probably just as hard to write bad jokes. You have to type.
Sure.
On a whole bunch of pieces of paper. And so Lauren said, yes. He goes, I was, he said, somewhere in the annals of show business, there came a time when someone said, never take no for an answer, but no can be a very, very good answer.
Did you have to
all
tell
I
the
can
guy?
hear is that typewriter.
Did you tell the guy? Did you finally tell him?
My mind is like, can you hear that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Are you transcribing everything we're saying?
I'm writing down notes so I can write the description.
Oh, I see.
But the description is an exact one-for-one word account of everything. Every breath, every sigh.
Wow, that's a great pictures.
Oh, thanks.
Very eclectic tastes.
Yeah, I collect a lot of weird stuff. What do you?
I would love that. There's a pizzeria near my place where they had a Mel Blanc. What do you call the?
Like a cell?
Yeah, cell.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what it was, And then they closed, and I was like, oh, I bet I could have bought that thing for $100.
I buy all sorts of cells. I drew this. I painted this in high school because I wanted to be a cartoonist.
You did?
I did. Yeah, and I found it
Did you copy it?
No, well, I mean, it was yeah, I mean, it was from an episode of, it was like a Wabbit season, Duck season episode.
Yeah,
but
there wasn't there wasn't that picture which you just traced or anything.
No,
you
no,
did that.
No, and I found it in a
gosh.
box like 2 years ago.
Holy crow!
And yeah, it was.
Why are you not a cartoonist?
Because I like comedy better, and also there are much better cartoonists. I mean, I guess you could argue there are better comedians too, but
you know what I hear from people who do animation, that there aren't good cartoonists. That it's not that there's bad cartoonists, but that the cartoonists don't understand comedy, so they don't do like these guys Bugs, and they'd all do different great takes, and and what I've heard is they send their funny script over to Korea,
right,
and they just have these.
Well, they do the in between. Yeah, they do the in betweens overseas. But
I think you should be with the guy and say, "I want Bugs to turn this way."
You should, yeah, and that's how it was when these guys when Chuck Jones and these guys were doing this. But
the guy I'm talking about did the next Junior, whatever the hell it was, No, you know what he did? He did, apparently, you might be interested in this. Apparently, there was a sitcom. They did it as a cartoon sitcom of Bugs Bunny and his friends. So,
like a fake 3-camera sitcom?
Yes.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yes. I mean, it would be fascinating to see, but it's an awful idea,
There was a very crucial point in college for me where I was just starting to do stand-up, which I had wanted to do my whole life. And then I submitted to this studio called Spumco, this guy named John Crickfalusi, who did Ren and Stimpy. And they were like masterful artists.
Yeah.
And I submitted, and I didn't get hired, and then I was so intimidated by how good... I thought I was good until I saw their work. And then...
Their animation work.
Animation work, yeah. And that was very much that thing where they were very hands-on.
Well, they were animators plus writers.
Yeah, and they directed the episodes.
Oh,
and
so they did everything. Right.
And so...
and Ren and Stimpy was the first, a comedy of the grotesque for cartoons, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was the first, John Kay, well, not to bore you with it, but John Kay was kind of a student of Ralph Bakshi, and Ralph Bakshi in the 70s was very, had a very kind of grotesque edge to him in a great way.
Yeah.
And so John
But why do I know that name, but I can't
Ralph Bakshi?
Muster the...
He did Fritz the Cat and...
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
And Wizards, and he just did a lot of...
Fritz the Cat was a movie.
Fritz the Cat was a movie. It was basically like a dirty animated
he would fuck
movie.
like
it was
cats.
Like they swore, and there was, he was kind of this street cat. Yeah.
Didn't they have sex?
Yeah. It was very sexual, and it was very dirty. It was, it was 70s. It was
Ralph
70s.
Bakshi, but what else did he do?
He did Mighty Mouse in the 80s. He did a version of Mighty Mouse, but he kind of had to conform a little bit. So his sensibilities. It's kind of funny, when you're younger and you're like, fuck everything, and then you start to get older and you're like, maybe I'll just take the job. Maybe I'll just do it.
I got a friend right now, I won't say who it is, but you probably know him. I'll tell you after. But he's in that situation where he was given he created a 3-camera show, but he's not a 3-camera guy. And so now So I said, just grab the cash. You got kids, you got an ex-wife, you got alimony. You know what I mean? Like you need money at some point. You know what I mean? That's like when people go, you sell out. There's a famous video of Bill Hicks screaming about Jay Leno selling out. This is so ridiculous because Jay Leno did a Cheetos commercial.
Doritos.
Doritos.
Yeah, he did Doritos, and I think that was on Rant in E minor. So he put it was. I think it's on one of his stand-up albums.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was a long bit he did.
Yeah.
And then first of all, I think it's I don't think you're supposed to go after other comics, but. He could have gone after a lot of people if it just came down to selling out, whatever that means. I mean, presumably Bill Hicks, performed in clubs that sold liquor.
Right.
So, I mean, everything's selling out. I mean, unless you just sit in your home and create art for yourself,
Well, I think selling out is... is violating your personal belief system for some type of gain, financial gain or power gain or whatever it is. But if Leno
But
didn't
what was
have
Leno's act that he was?
yeah, exactly. If he didn't have a particular, like, boy, I really hate Doritos. Doritos is going to give me some money.
Right.
Guess I better rethink that.
Of
Like,
course.
he probably was neutral on Doritos, and someone said, "Hey, here's $1 million." Well,
Exactly.
sure, why not?
And then he said, Leno has no right to call himself a comic. And I was like, well, how about the right of he's 1,000,000 times funnier than you? Like,
Well,
does that give him a right to call himself
Leno
a
was a
comic?
spectacular comedian.
When I said he was like Elvis, I mean, did you ever see him when he was just at his
when he used to
peak?
go on Letterman,
God.
and he was super fiery and
Yeah.
had and way edgy and
Unbelievable. And I saw him live, and he moved. He was powerful. Like even after they got famous, like Seinfeld would go on the Improv. They go Jerry Seinfeld. People would applaud for 10 minutes, and then he'd do his act. It'd do well, of course,
Sure.
but wouldn't destroy it. But Leno would just be, performing his heart out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just crushing. Like he didn't rest on his laurels, at all. And I didn't like him. I certainly, can understand why people don't think he was a great talk show host. However, I do not understand the animosity directed toward him.
I think for some people it probably was. There was definitely a shift in his presentation between his comedy and then the show.
Sure.
Because they're two different modes, and he probably just assumed like, oh, okay, well the guy who's hosting the show probably needs to be more congenial and not,
he made a calculated decision.
It was a calculated decision, and because he couldn't. Because he would have fucking steamrolled everyone if he was that guy hosting that show.
It wouldn't have worked. Yeah, he would have, the guest wouldn't have had a chance.
And he's also a ridiculously smart guy, and I think he probably, once he got into the job, was legitimately just not that interested in talking to people that he probably felt like, well, I'm probably a lot smarter than this person, and I don't really care who the fourth lead on ER, like what they have to say about stuff.
And it's not his fault. He was offered this, $15 million a year job.
Well, of course he would. And it's also Johnny's show. Like it was a big thing.
Yeah,
it was a
of course.
huge honor. It was a big
And
honor.
he was real smart also, and he made the monologue 20 minutes, and Letterman wasn't used to a long monologue because at the time Carson said you couldn't do a monologue,
Right.
as one of his conditions to do 12:30. So Letterman instead did this, 3 or 4 joke anti-monologue,
Right.
which was great. But I remember one time being at the Tonight Show, and Jay's like, "Well, I don't understand Dave. Like, why is he? He has the better show. His show's much better." He said that, right, Jimmy? Like he knew that Dave's show was better, but but what drives comedians crazy is no one else had that connection to the audience as Jay Leno did.
Right.
Nobody, and he crushed everybody. And when he left, he was number one.
Yeah, and I think there's also I think he also probably got dinged for being, I don't know, like, I think it was probably like, oh, he just wants to be number one. You know what I mean? But I feel like no matter what, people shit on you no matter what. Like if no matter if
you're popular,
if you're popular, because people even started kind of turning on Letterman, like
they
toward
did,
the,
which shocked me.
Yeah,
that really shocked me.
So I think it's just
why did they turn on him? I heard that they said he was political. I've heard that from a lot of people.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think it's just the nature of the ebbs and flows of social dynamics. It's like how could people love someone for 30 years nonstop? There would have to be it's a discovery period, and then now a backlash. Oh, now it's cool to like him again.
Right.
It's just the nature.
I think
it's just the nature. But you said something. I think I saw an article of maybe it was Esquire. There was an article where you were talking about how you thought the state of comedy itself was kind of declining a little bit, or like you had some criticisms about the state of comedy and I think some of it had to do with maybe the kind of confessional style that's...
This is what Rich Scheidner told me, and I don't watch comedy very much. I don't watch young people do comedy. But yeah, Rich Shiner was telling me, what they do now is confessional comedy. And I went to a club and I watched the comedians and I understood what he was talking about. Like, they would say, about how they got molested when they were a kid and without going into names, like if you have, like I saw a one-woman show once by a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And,
just one?
Yeah, only one.
Just one.
And she was like, well, my mother had breast cancer, and now I have breast cancer. And I'm like, well, it's everybody. Like, they think it's so special when everyone gets cancer and dies. Like that's not
great. What if we just ended the podcast?
But it's almost like the height of narcissism to think that you're going to you're going to be so brave as to talk about it in person,
right?
Whereas all you're doing is just garnering sympathy for yourself.
Well, I guess that's true.
How is that brave? It seems cowardly to me. It seems much braver to me. Like I remember Richard Farnsworth was a old character actor, and he did a David Lynch movie called The Straight Story, and riddled with cancer. His last movie, and very frail. And it's a fantastic movie if you ever get a chance to see it. It's not a style, because I'm not really that big a fan of what's his name?
David Lynch?
Yeah. I'm not a fan of it. I don't understand weird stuff. I'm like, huh, what? But this one is a straight ahead story. You think. I call it like a hard G. It's G rated.
Okay. It's hard G.
I call it hard G. Because the second time I watched it, I'm like, whoa, I understand it all of a sudden. Well, you got to see this movie.
Okay.
And if you watch it closely, there's like hellish things going on underneath the surface of what looks like a quaint story. It's based on a guy who, in actual real life, drove his riding lawnmower across the state to visit his brother who was dying. So anyways, the point of it is that Richard Farnsworth was nominated for an Academy Award for the movie. And if he had said he was filled with cancer, he would have won for sure.
Sure.
But instead, he didn't say it. And in fact, no one knew it. His family didn't know it. He kept it from everyone. And then he was a stuntman before he was an actor. He did what they call a stuntman's death, which is you put a shotgun in your mouth and with your toe you pull the trigger and blow your head off.
Oh my God.
And so that to me is courageous. Like you're not being a burden to your family. They know nothing about it, and then you're gone.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
And then toe in the shotgun.
Yeah. And they write him. He wrote a nice letter to everybody, in the family, and said that he didn't want to. The reason he did it is he didn't want to cause people distress. So I thought, wow, how incredible! Like how many
to just
people
go through
could
it
do
alone.
that? Yeah.
So you don't think
to go through it alone?
You don't think you would write confessional? Like, you didn't talk about any of the gambling stuff in your stand-up, did you? Was that
stand-up? No, never. I never talked about me, really. I talked about universal me. You know what I mean?
Right.
That I was afraid of death, or that that kind of thing, which is something that everybody is afraid of. And so things like that. That it was me, but it was everybody.
Sure.
I wasn't pretending that it was a specific
right
ailment that I had. And if I had a specific ailment, and possibly I do, you don't know.
I don't know.
But I would not talk about it. I would not. I hope that I would not discuss it, and just try to benefit monetarily from that.
But you tell some of
which
the
other
stories
people get it, and they get nothing.
But you tell stories in the book, though. So that is, in a way, you're sharing it, right?
Well, I don't tell stories, though, that are... I tell stories about my gambling.
Sure.
But, I don't really think of gambling as much of an illness. Like I think I say in the book, like it's the only illness where you can get incredibly wealthy. You don't get osteoarthritis.
That's a good joke.
Ain't gonna get you dime one. I do put a lot of jokes in the book. There's so many jokes. I'm like, God damn, that could have been in my act.
It's amazing what happens when you sit down and force yourself to write.
It is. It's incredible. Well, first of all, you think about your life, and because Socrates said a life unexamined is not worth living, which I don't agree with, but especially after examining my life. But it's kind of depressing because when you really look at your life, you realize you don't do hardly anything, Eating food is huge amount of time. Like buying food, going to restaurants, finding people to eat with you for the next meal.
Right.
Food. That's most of your day, especially when you're doing stand-up on the road.
Yes.
Trying to find food. So when you look at it, it's so mundane, and that's not how I want to remember. I'd rather remember things. Like, for instance, when I was a little boy, my dad had a Bell & Howell 8mm camera. Film. There was film in it, And he would take pictures of our like a birthday party, and just be all these little kids like waving, and sort of like in a kind of pixelated manner, and the colors were garish, and and it it was bright lights, the brightest light right in your face. And anyways, it would take 15 seconds because my father didn't want to, it was expensive to film. But I have it, and when I look back on it, it's the way that memory is. Like it's this sort of unreal colors and things like that, So then I cut to me with my son years later, and I had a video camera, and so I taped his 5th birthday, and it was like 2 hours, and then I watched it, and I'm like, I'm not going to show this to my kid. Like, it's just the most banal. Nothing happens. Just a kid walks from here to here, and then he's off. Another kid walks here, and then another kid, and then they say nothing to each other. And I'm like, I'm not going to show this to my kid. Like, I want him to remember things as he thought they were, not as they actually were.
Sure.
And so a lot of the book is meditations on memory, because I've always found it odd that people remember things falsely. And I know it's false because I'm in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So a guy will go, remember that time you caught that big fish? I go, I never fished in my life. It was a huge fish. I'm like, I'm telling you, I've never gone fishing. I've never been in a boat. Man, it was fun. We went and ate it in a cabin. I'm like, okay, whatever. They're so convinced of it,
right?
That even the person, and then I start to go, I don't know, maybe I caught a fish. Like, then my memory suddenly becomes suspect. So a lot of the book is sort of reflections on what memory actually is, and how you look backwards, and kind of what the past is. Because it is, to me, faulty memory.
Sure.
And, people say live in the present, which is fantastic if you can do it. But on the other hand, who lives in the present? Alzheimer's patients.
They do. That's absolutely true.
And it's a nightmare. And here's an interesting thing. A person will go, like, if you could go to I'm going to ask you a question, Chris.
Okay.
If you could go to the greatest island of your choice, mm-hmm. and go with the most beautiful woman of your dreams, and for a month have a fantastic tropical paradise. Mm-hmm. But in return, you don't remember any of it when you get home. Would you accept that bargain?
That's such an interesting philosophical question because it really divides people between who are going to live in the moment and who are doing things to remember the. I mean,
Well, people do. That's the interesting thing. People go, I'm going to go to Hawaii and I'm going to get the best pictures. I'll take them, bring them back. You know what I mean? Like,
that I 100%.
So they're going to go to a place in the future to record the past.
Right. I completely.
And, in this decision you have to make, a month of your life goes by.
Right.
That's gone.
Do I recognize that there's a month hole in my life where I go, how is it September? What happened to August?
Yeah.
Or, okay, so there is a gap.
Yep.
See, that's
You
kind of
lose
a
a
problem
month.
because I would feel like, well, I have some sort of a neurological disorder. How could I just lose a month of my life? And if
No.
Okay.
Forget
Am I
about the
overthinking
neurological
this?
disorder. This is a Twilight Zone.
Okay, this is a Twilight
Zone
Zone
comes
episode.
up to you.
Okay.
A guy comes
Submit
up
for
to
your
you.
approval.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would because I still feel like it'd be a great month.
Yeah, it'd be a great month.
And it would be a nice bonus to be able to remember that month. But then also the other side of it is, does my wife also have...
your wife.
Well, I just got married, so I say my wife. Does my
No,
wife...
your wife is in it, too. As I was saying that, I was like, I think Chris is married.
Just got married.
Yeah.
But does she remember it too, or does it wipe from her memory?
Oh, no, it's wiped from everybody's memory.
I still think you do it. It's
You
still a
do
great
it.
month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish we had
Maybe
somebody
it was a
else to-
weekend. I'd be
There's
like,
three
it's
other
a
people
weekend.
that, even though they're not on mic, exist
Yeah.
within the room. So if you guys have a vote.
Would you vote? What would you do, Katie? You would do it, Deb?
Really?
You would do it too. Would you not do it?
No, I wouldn't do it. No.
You wouldn't do
I'm just going to say no.
Yeah.
Because you just feel like if you can't recall the experience and it didn't happen.
Then it's useless, yeah.
I mean, it's basically you're loosely probably plotting out what the storyboards were for Total Recall. It's
I
just
never
like-
saw that movie. Is that
Oh,
what
that's basically the movie. It's like the whole concept of the movie was they would implant memories of things that you didn't actually do, but you would remember. And so, Schwarzenegger's character has this psychotic break because he doesn't know, it's kind of acting out this thing that he was supposed to be a memory. I don't know, but it
sounds great.
It's that idea.
There's movies I don't watch because Arnold Schwarzenegger's in them. And then they turn out like they're great.
Well, that one's a good one.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That's a fun movie. But I guess it
So
does-
anyways, I guess I was thinking when I wrote based on a true story that, that the past is faulty memory and the future is the great catastrophe to come. We know
Right.
what the future is.
Right.
So we don't want to contemplate that.
Right.
And so then all we have is what we call the present, which is obviously the past.
Yes.
Like what we've been doing for this time is not the present. It's all been the past.
I recall
It's been the recent past.
It's a very recent past, like that.
I was trying to think of if you could, this could be a self-help thing or something, because all history, when you think about it, is ancient history. Once it's gone, it's gone. It doesn't matter if it happened 10 seconds ago or 10,000 years ago.
Right.
It's no longer exists. So if you could have that perspective, like if you meet an 80-year-old man, and only in country and western songs are they brokenhearted. But if you realize, if you meet actual 80-year-old men, you're like, do you ever remember a girl breaking your heart? They're like, yeah. They don't remember anything about that. They're just trying to get through the day. So if you could have that, if you could make yourself have instant perspective and go, well, what will I think in 10 years about this? Because
Right.
you get so emotional after, you get fired, so angry, and you go, well, in 5 years I won't be angry.
Right. I mean, it's basically a Christmas Carol. It's like you're dealing with past,
Another
present,
movie I
and
didn't
future.
see. I should have seen these films before I came
Well,
up with
Christmas
my
Carol was a
philosophies.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have, but that idea of projecting into the future and going, am I still going to care about this?
Oh, well, I
in a
know
week?
Christmas. I'm sorry, I know what you're talking.
Yeah.
I thought you meant another.
Yeah.
I've seen Christmas Carol.
You've
I
seen
saw
Christmas
Rich Little's Christmas Carol.
Did he do all of the? Of course he did. Yeah.
Characters.
Now
And it was back.
I'm Cary Grant as the ghost of Christmas. Okay.
Yeah, it was Paul Newman was Tiny Tim.
Wouldn't talk about his boy.
Yeah. And just anybody he could do. Like, it didn't matter if they lived in the same era.
No.
Nixon was. I always thought it was Nixon didn't sound anything like Nixon, but yeah, Nixon was Scrooge. Why are you buying that goose? Or whatever.
This is a real thing.
Yeah. I think it might be on YouTube. Maybe she's going to look it up.
Okay, do we look to see if Rich Little's Christmas
Rich
Carol
Little is a Christmas Carol.
is on YouTube?
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
God bless us, everyone.
You know, I found a thing on YouTube and I told it to Howard Stern, and then he mentioned it a few times, and then it became sort of viral, and it became that's
Fucking
it.
Rich Little's A Christmas Carol. HBO, 1978.
Wait, no, what's that?
Well, that's Superman 2. That's an ad for Superman 2.
Yeah.
There he is.
Wait,
There's Dick Cavett.
Well, that's Dick Cavett. What the hell?
Boy, Rich Little's good. He looked just like Dick Cavett. Oh, there it is.
Oh, there it is. There's all the. Well, this must be fascinating for the listeners. But there's a fantastic. I'm a kind of a Richard Nixon-ophile, and I'll watch anything with Richard Nixon because I find him fascinating.
Yeah.
And I kind of disagree with everybody else about Nixon. You know, I remember I was talking to that Ariana Huffington before she was before
she had a post,
before she had an empire like you. And I said, you know, like what's charisma? You know, because they say, you know, Kennedy had charisma, but Nixon had none. And yet, if I'm flipping through the channels and I see Nixon, I stop and I listen. You know, I find him fascinating and intriguing. So isn't that charisma? I just asked this on the air to her. And she goes, "What, are you stupid if you think that?" She goes, "Me stupid?" And I'm like, "Well, you're the one that married the gay guy." She married a gay guy. That's what she was famous for at the time before starting her empire. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. She married a guy, and then she married it was kind of a marriage of convenience to get Ariana more publicity, you know. And his name was Michael Huffington.
Oh, right. Gotcha.
Senator, yeah. So, but he was open. I'm not, you know, I wasn't like outing.
You didn't,
the guy.
yeah, of course.
No. But yeah, so I find Nixon to be just a fantastic, you know.
I think charisma, just on the topic,
Yeah.
I think charisma is about presence.
Uh-huh.
You know, like you can tell when someone's present in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's an attractive quality because I
Yes.
think it's a thing that most people, because if you're present in the moment, you must have a reason for being present in the moment, and therefore you must have answers to questions that people have. So I think that's
Wait,
probably
what
an
does
attractive
present in the moment mean?
I mean, like, you can tell that someone is locked into what's going on. You know, if someone's having a conversation with you, they're paying attention, they're looking you in the eye.
Do you believe you're present in the moment right now?
Right now I am.
Do you believe I am?
I believe you are as well.
I believe that too.
But I also know that there are times where I just drift. You know, it's like, oh, I'm thinking about, I got to turn in this
How
thing.
amazing is it that you can read like 8 pages of a book?
You got to reread them.
Isn't that bizarre?
Just disappears.
You're turning the pages, you're reading the words, and your mind the whole time is thinking about another thing that happened.
Because one word triggers your brain, and then that just, all of a sudden, that word becomes like a ball of yarn to a cat in your
Yes.
brain where you just spin off
Right.
and then.
But why do you keep reading it, though?
Because your body is just on autopilot,
You're on
I guess. Your
automatic-
body,
yes, you're on
instead of.
It's interesting that your brain can automatically do things. It's almost like women that you see in factories, you know, and their hands are moving by themselves, like,
Right.
you know, they're doing things and they can talk with their friends, and,
Yeah.
or even knitting or something.
That's just all muscle memory, but your brain can't
It's muscle
focus on
memory.
more than one thing at a time, and that's
It
just.
can't. There's no such thing as multitasking.
You cannot
multitask.
purely multitask.
No.
You can do a bunch of things at once if they're sort of.
You can stop doing one thing and then do another thing and then go back to the one
Or
thing.
like that, if your hands are, but you cannot focus on more than one thing at a time.
No,
it's
no,
impossible. And I
it's
think
impossible,
that is, you know,
And if you're doing it like you say automatically, I mean, that's the same thing as saying you're multitasking if you're speaking and
Sure.
digesting food.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That digesting of the food is I read a great thing called the second brain, the gut, the second brain. It was like fascinating how your digestive system works on its own without the necessity of a brain. And even if the brain was cut out, the digestive system would continue.
oh wow.
Yeah, it's
Well, they're even talking about using the gut bacteria as a therapeutic, as a treatment for obesity, because they're basically doing a poop transfer. They're scooping out stool, and they can, put it in another. The idea being that this bacteria is healthier and will create more balance in your gut. There's a lot of stuff happens.
So
in
what
the
do they
gut.
do? They they scoop the.
I like to think two people just put their butts up against each other.
Oh, it's a transplant.
It's a transplant.
So
yeah.
they scoop the stool.
It's like gut bacteria, yeah, and they transplant it into another person. The theory being that just creates a healthier balance.
That used to be a hobby of mine.
Yeah.
I never thought it was.
That's therapeutic.
Yeah.
Now you feel better. Now you know you're doing
It's
it for
like
science.
the guy that just looked at the piece of bread with mold on it and invented penicillin.
I could do something with that.
Yeah.
I'll bet that would help sick people.
Yeah.
But I also think this.
But I would never go, hey, this stool I've scooped from my buddy's butt.
I should put this in my stomach.
Yeah, I shouldn't have fun with it.
I probably should throw this away.
Yeah,
to be honest,
I should probably.
I'm not even sure why I'm holding
It's
on
a
to this.
bad habit. That's another thing life is. It's funny when you do an autobiography because you think, you reflect on your life. And I really think habits are everything. You know what I mean? And if you have bad habits, you're in trouble.
Sure.
But if you consciously say, I'm going to have good habits, your life just gets so much better.
Sure.
You go, I'm going to drink water. That's going to be my habit. Instead of smoking cigarettes, I'm going to drink water.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the bad habits are easier, and to fall into and everything like that. But I know there's addictions also and stuff
Sure.
like that. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't really know because I don't know if research has been done where, they say something's an illness. Because an illness, I don't know why they use that word really, because an illness is something that you can be treated with, narcotics or penicillin or antibiotics, and just calling it might just be a bad choice. Like it might just be a bad habit. You might not be compelled to do it. You know what I mean? First of all, it's fun to do. You never hear of people getting addicted to terrible things. You know what I mean?
Well,
that's not true. As soon as I said it.
I love the instant backpedaling. Actually.
But they think it's good.
Well, I think
If it's bulimia or something like that.
right. Well,
Or cutting.
I also think that
They get pleasure from it.
This idea that about how you can only focus on one thing. I think a lot of bad habits form because people are trying to distract themselves from that one, like that thing that they can't stop focusing on.
Well, that thing would be your mortality.
I suppose.
I mean, if you were just all alone with nothing to do, I think that's where your mind would go.
Right.
And I think the more stuff you can do, the lesser you can think of that,
And that must go all the way back to what we were talking about with your dad retiring and just sitting around and be like, well, now it's just mortality all day, every day.
Exactly.
And it's right there.
I tweeted Richard Dawkins, the famous atheist.
Yeah, I know he is.
And, of course, he just thinks I'm a moron, because he went to Cambridge and I dropped out of high school. But I asked him, I said, why does life insist? And they didn't understand. What's that mean? I'm like, well, it means, I thought he was like smart. So I said, why does life
I know what you mean.
need to create other life?
Right.
Why do you have to procreate? Why do you have to live?
And fight to stay alive. and
Yeah,
survive,
fight to stay alive and make sure that your genes stay alive. Why do you have to do that? Why, if nothing matters, wouldn't the obvious thing to do be go extinct?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To me, that would be the clear and obviously self-evident thing to do. And, in fairness to Richard Dawkins, he said, oh, well, that's a philosophical question that I'll ask my friends and I'll try to get back to you. So it was very nice. But I think it lies at the heart of theology, and people of faith, especially in this town, they'll say you believe in an invisible man in the sky, and they already throw on you their ideas of what you believe in. Although they don't know what you believe. They don't know what you think of as God. But the one question that have always bothered me and always bothers everybody is, how can children die if there's a benevolent God, right? And how can 6 million go through the chimney at Birkenau,
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a question that I think I have an answer for, because I think a lot about this kind of stuff. Because I'd really like there to be a God. I don't know at all, but I really would like there to be a God.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sarah Silverman told me, she's like, so you really believe in it? I go, I'm trying, She's like, you believe in an invisible man in the sky? She says it that way. So I'm like, well, whatever, if you want to say it that way. So she's like, well, good luck with that. And I'm like, well, it's a good luck for you, too. It's not like your idea of like being thrown on the ground, having dirt tossed on you is such a beautiful, great idea.
That doesn't bother me.
Dirt thrown on you forever?
I mean, yeah, because I just sort of feel like it's probably just a blissful state of non-existence that I had before. Boy, I'm going to be really, it's going to be a huge bummer if that's not the case.
But if you have a blissful state of non-existence, then you're talking about an afterlife.
Well, okay, blissful is probably the wrong word. I just meant I'm not aware of anything, I think it'd be great if there was something, but if there's not, I think the worst thing would be your consciousness lives on, but there's nothing. So you just feel,
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, that would be hell.
I suppose.
I mean, Nabokov, I think, was the guy who said, like, he saw a picture of himself. I'm sorry, he saw a picture of his parents. And his parents had his older brother in his arm, and his mother had his older brother in her arms, and his mother and father and his older brother. But he had not been born yet. And he said he felt no grief or terror at that picture.
Sure.
Where he didn't exist.
Right.
So I thought that was very interesting. Like, it's what you're saying,
right.
That why be afraid of not existing? Because it's not really you that dies. It's the world that dies.
Sure.
And everything there is. Everything there is and everything.
I mean, I think it would be fantastic if there was some sort of a transformation of, this is a conservation of emotional energy that, once your emotional energy forms, it can't ever be destroyed, and it just disperses into the universe somehow, and you're a part of this thing that is you can't comprehend now, but once you're there, you'll totally get it.
It's very hard to believe.
But it'd be great if that were
of course it would be great.
I don't fault anyone.
But here's my answer for the
What's the answer?
For the chimneys. Here's what I believe. If there is a God, and if he is good, and if he created the universe and the earth, then an all good being, what can he create? He can't create good, because that would just be expansion.
Mm-hmm.
So all he can create is bad. So he creates bad, and then in a cool twist, the bad that he creates is allowed itself in a godlike way to create good from the bad. Because originally God created good from the bad, then bad from the good, and then he gives man the exact opportunity. So just from a standpoint of logic, which, is what atheists always try to say, I believe that there is an answer for the question of why God allows horrors, and that's what I come up with. But
I also,
I have a rabbi who I talk to a lot. I'm not Jewish.
No, MacDonald, no.
I was for a year, but he's the guy that knows. He's a scholar. Like my pastor doesn't know anything. Like he's just a pleasant guy. And he has
I don't know. You should probably look that up.
He has
what is there? I mean, you know.
I know. If you ask him a direct question, you go, huh, what? Didn't you hear my sermon? And the sermon's always like, how to be a nice fella, or something. It's always nonsense. But this pastor, I phoned this pastor, because I try to read the scriptures and study them. Last week I asked this priest, this rabbi, I was saying, like in the Old Testament, they have the Lord's Prayer. And in the Lord's Prayer, he says, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And I said, how could God lead us into temptation? It's without his boundaries, it's without his fence. God can't do that, if I'm correct about the God of the Old Testament. He cannot. It's not in his nature. The devil can, but not God. So the devil's hard to believe in. Of all the religions, it's hard to say one's worse than the other, But I can say with all belief that there's one religion that's just not true. And that's the Church of Satan. I think it even purports to be not true. There's a guy that's bigger than me.
Well, I think some of them, I think some of the people who are, and I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but just some of the stuff that I've seen online, I think some people adopt it as kind of a counter, okay, well, you guys have that guy over there with the beard, and then we have this guy, and we should all be accepting. It's not just that one, or just I think
right.
Sometimes I think it's
but
a
do you
reaction.
really want to have a personal relationship with the devil? A guy, it's the only religion where there's a bigger, stronger guy outside, of that the Satanists say exists.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But they say we're going to go with the
guy
underdog.
who was, because that guy, that guy wasn't popular. He got cast out. So we're going to be with this guy over here because
maybe that's it. Maybe he's an outlaw.
Yeah, he's kind of an outlaw. Yeah, exactly.
He's definitely the original outlaw. Look, I don't want to say too many good things about the devil. But I guess he was. Now that you say it, he was the original outlaw.
I hadn't really thought about it before, but I guess now, he was the original guy who got kicked out of the party. Who doesn't relate to that?
Exactly.
It's like big popular guys having a party. There's naked people running around. There's snakes and apples. There's a beautiful garden. It's like, they got kicked out. Come on. Everyone knows what that feels like.
It's funny, people think that whatever the religion you are, Christian or whatever, that you're so self-righteous, but actually, they feel they're sinners. When I was a Christian, I would sin all the time, and I ate apples. That's on page 1 of the book. The worst possible thing you could do. And but anyways, I'm right now I'm of no faith.
But you're looking for answers.
Yeah, I'll find something. I'm probably closer to Judaism right now than anything else. But I like to laughter is so important to me. I'm talking about me laughing,
sure,
not hearing other people laugh,
right?
But me laughing because I'm so emotional and so sensitive that I can be broken. And I know I can, and so laughter is what keeps me. It really keeps me going, and I'm lucky to be able to. There's people in comedy I've met that don't laugh.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I don't know if it's a power move or not, but they'll look through your sketch. Yeah, this.
Oh, that's funny. Well, you didn't laugh.
Yeah,
that's
how
funny.
Can it be funny if you're not laughing?
Rule
and
1.
It might be insecurity. I don't know what it is. I mean, I know people that aren't funny become professional comedians. I know that.
Sure.
And they go to Harvard University. You know what I mean? With the express purpose. And I met the old Harvard guys. You know what I mean? Because Jim Downey, for instance, is still was still at Saturday Night Live when I was there. And he took some arcane thing that I never heard of, Subject, and him and Sean Kelly, Donahue were all the same. And then on their spare time, they're super geniuses, and they go and write a hilarious thing for the Lampoon.
Sure.
And then they got into comedy. But now guys expressly go to Harvard to take any subject just so they can be at the Lampoon all the time.
And then go write for The Simpsons.
Yes, so they get into that pipeline.
Yeah.
Of and they're not funny, they're just. I was so. I don't know if you ran into Harvard people when you first got here to Los Angeles, but writers, a great deal of writers are Harvard people.
Sure.
And that scared me so much because I never graduated high school, and Harvard, you know what I mean? So what I expected were guys with pipes and dogs at their feet and, just the smartest people ever, and they weren't. And then I found out they were just rich. They had money. Like their parents had money. It's pretty unfair,
What's funny to you?
You mean who's funny?
Yeah,
or
we're like
what's
what type of stuff is funny to you?
Tons of stuff.
I'm glad to hear
Tons
that.
of stuff. Yeah. Oh no, I love laughing. So I watch Brian Regan. He's probably
It's fucking amazing.
my favorite. Like super laughing. Like I love Louis C.K. But I don't know where I place him because Brian makes me laugh way harder. And also completely clean. It's like
Right.
magical. I don't know how I really don't know how he does it. And I love I watch. I try to get my kid to watch. Try to get somebody to watch a silent movie nowadays. Impossible. You go, no, you got to look at the screen the entire time.
I'm looking. No, you're definitely not looking.
Yeah. No, I have people go, I go to the bathroom, just keep it playing. Like in movies, I go, keep it playing. Like,
No, but that fucking drives me crazy because when those people come back, they go, it's okay, keep it playing, and then you keep it playing, they come out and they go, what happened? Like, well, I would have paused it.
You moron.
You said.
Keep it playing. Like they can figure it out when they get back.
Well, that's also kind of a little bit of a power move to say, like, your thing's cute, but I get it.
Probably,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I mean, whenever that's the thing, like I have a kid, whenever you push something, it never works.
Of course.
You know what I mean? You say something's real funny, and of course it doesn't work. But there's so many great comedies, and, with Netflix, they had Fargo, and, a lot of things that make me laugh the most in popular culture are not called comedies, because I think once you call a movie comedy, you're kind of pegged in. You're
Sure.
kind of in trouble.
Sure.
Because then that's that laugh, 2 laughs a page or whatever it is. Whereas if you just call it, like I met Tarantino and I said, I think your movies are comedies. Personally, I'm never emotionally drawn in at all. Like I would never cry at one of your movies. They're to me giant cartoons. And he agreed. I don't know if he actually agreed in his head, but he agreed with his words. Because I said, you're lucky, like, as in a comedy, it has to be so fast-paced, joke. But you get to, get Christopher Walken talking for, 5 minutes about putting a pocket watch up his ass, and setting up this great joke, where people aren't expecting it, because it's supposed to be a Tarantino movie. So, but he obviously has comic aspirations. It was very funny when he hosted Saturday Night Live because you act different around directors because they can give you work.
Of course.
So everybody's trying to look interesting, Like I was brooding in the corner.
Do a lot of extra character work.
I was sitting beside. I did the same thing. I was sitting beside Annie Leibovitz, the photographer. So right beside her in an airplane. So she hardly ever look at me, but I would try to look like super tortured.
I want to photograph that guy. He says
like
he has a
never do
story to
that.
tell. What's going on behind that?
Like she doesn't just do it for the
He
money.
just brushed his hair back for it. It's not even windy in here. I don't even know what he was doing, but I just need to take a picture. Like she's just gonna hold that and just start snapping pictures on the.
But you, it's funny how you act towards people when they, we probably both had this, and you've had enormous success. So now you're in a different class when it comes to money, and I find in my personal life, money separates people, and it's just weird to go to a guy's giant mansion and you don't have a giant mansion, so you can't really invite him to your place, and so mostly you just got to walk around going, whoa, what's that, how much does that picture cost? You're like this rube, and then he has other rich people. Now he's got rich friends also. He's got you, and then he's got super rich friends, and so. I don't know. I don't know if it's a class thing, but my father would always go, why don't the black guys, pull their bootstraps out and get out of the ghetto, But they're comfortable in I don't know if there's still ghettos, but this is where they live, and this is where their family is and their friends, and they're going to leave, to try to make it with. Like one time I went to England, and there was a comedian that came to Canada, and. He said, if you come to England, come and visit me. So I went to England because they had a comedy show back then. And I said, I'll visit this guy. I go to his house. It's a castle. He forgot to tell me that he's so super rich. So it was one of those goddamn long tables like you see in the movies, and the butlers and shit. And the soup, and then you feel so uncomfortable. You're like, just let me get home.
You're a comedian?
Yeah.
Did you do this?
Oh, they're talking like from the movies, and you can hardly make them out. I'm talking about the parents, and I was never more uncomfortable. But then a super funny thing happened. They had a dog. They had two little poodles, And then they were running, big fight, down Scampy, whatever the hell their name was, down Louis the 14th. And so we look over, and we're all, they're all fancy. I don't have any good clothes, but they're all super fancy. The butler's there and everything. And then one of the dogs is eating the other dog's shit. Because
gut bacteria.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just trying to create more digestive.
Because they don't know they're rich. The dogs have no idea how much money they're worth. But I
bet their dog's shit was a better meal than most Americans have.
Yes,
every night.
Probably
more
true.
Protein.
That's probably true. but so class is very hard to just jump into the next rung and try to. They talk different, they act different. It's really hard to, even money won't do it sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you can't just if you win a lottery ticket, you can't hang out in New York with money to people in the Hamptons. They're not going to accept you. So, class, there's still class and it's very hard to not want to be with your buddies and your family.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all just I think shiny things are fun.
Yeah.
But, but I've had...
Well, you laugh.
I do, yeah. I've had many periods.
Enjoy yourself.
I love, yes, and I love comedy. The same as, I like just like what you're saying. I feel exactly the same. I'm a big laugher. I liked it. I don't know why you would watch comedy if you weren't going to apprate it.
Yeah, I don't either.
Right. I don't know.
Well, you have the perfect job to get to, laugh at this.
I love watching, and I love watching my friends be exactly who I know they are, which it's like watching your friends do. I guess that's part of the supportive thing you were talking about. It's like, we're all doing the same stuff, and to watch someone kill the way that they can kill, and to see people.
Or to watch them bomb.
It's great.
That's funny too.
It's really
watch
great.
them do really badly. I can't do it anymore because people recognize me. But when I was starting out, my favorite thing was to go to amateur night or open mic because 75% of them are mentally ill. And so then they're out on the street ranting, and they go, "Oh, I can go inside," and they're just unintentionally very fun. I don't know if it's cruelty, but god damn, it makes me laugh. I just
Are you performing anywhere anytime soon? Are you getting up regularly?
Oh no, yeah, I'm stopping a little bit, because I went crazy. I couldn't say no,
Right.
And 2 years ago, I did 46 weeks.
Jesus Christ, that's too much.
That's too much. I did one time so many weeks in a row when I was starting out. When I first came to America, I said, I'll just do every week, get to be the strongest comedian ever. I started to get nervous and anxious, and maybe I was losing my mind a little bit, And I read a story about a guy named Dick Shawn.
Oh yeah,
You know the story
Yeah,
about
I don't
him?
know the story, but I know the guy.
Yeah, he was in The Producers.
Mm-hmm.
He played the guy who wrote the Springtime for Hitler. So, anyways, I read an article that said, here he was this fantastic improvisational performer, apparently. So he went on stage and he destroyed, for the first half. Then there was an intermission. But right before the intermission, he had a real heart attack. But people in the audience thought it was not a real.
Right.
So he fell down and they're laughing, Can you imagine, like, the worst thing they could... He's like, no. And imagine just hearing laughter. And, so it got in my head, this story, because I was kind of losing my mind. I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of something happening to me. I don't know why. But so then I thought, that's going to happen to me.
You're going to have the heart attack.
Yeah, because I got very nervous before I went on stage. So I thought, well, nerves can lead to stress, which can lead to a heart attack. That's not unreasonable. So I go on stage. And I tell the audience, I go, listen, there was this guy, Dick Shawn, and he had pretended to have a heart attack, and everybody ignored him and laughed. If that happens tonight with me, it will be an actual heart attack. So after I say that, everyone laughs. And I'm like, oh, fuck, in my head. I'm like, now I've done it even worse.
Now they really think it's a joke.
Yeah, now if I have a heart attack. So then I go, no, folks, no. I go, I know now. It looks like if I have a heart attack later, that this is a joke that I set up now. I go, no. It's definitely, I can't strongly enough emphasize that it will be a real heart. And now people are going, okay, we understand, but what the fuck? It's the unfunniest thing we've ever heard. And so I never recover. And then I remember at the end of the show, a guy came up to me, he goes, I didn't like much of it, but I liked the first part. But at the end, you should have pretended to have a heart attack. And I was like, no.
No, it's the opposite of what I would say.
So then I quit. I got off the road, and I said, I need like a couple of months off because, you start forgetting where you are or
what day it is, what it's like to be a human. I want to. When you start performing again, will you please let me know so I can come see? I would love to. I would love to come see. I would love to come see it.
Well, maybe we'll all do a show or something.
That'd be really fun. That'd be really fun.
It's good to go to that Comedy Magic Club where everyone likes you, no matter what you say.
Yeah. The Comedy Store's been fun. The Comedy Store's been really fun.
Which room?
The main room.
Oh, what's that one?
It's the big room.
That room's great.
No,
that room's awesome.
It's going through this renaissance.
The original room is tough.
It can be tough. Yeah, it can be tough. Like if it's, if you go have a late spot in the middle of the week, it can be.
I think my friend Adam Egett, who was a manager, is responsible, strong, because I've seen him. Like, I'll be with Spade, and he'll go like, if you ever want to do sets,
I'm telling you, man,
I'll take care of you.
Really done an incredible job there. It is such a great. There's so much energy there. Yeah. And it's so lively. Yeah. It's really great.
It's Adam Egett.
Adam's done great, and then the improv also has like stepped up their game too. It's actually a really good time for comedy in LA.
It is a good time, and I was there for the first comedy boom.
Yeah.
But that one sucked because. They would just put comedy everywhere.
Right.
And comedy doesn't work everywhere. And now they put, the guys do their own shows. People, the kids do their own shows.
Yeah.
In the back of a pizzeria or something.
Yep.
And it's a great crowd and, stuff like that. But back in in that first comedy boom. I remember there was one time. It was in Ottawa. It was me and another a comedy named Jeremy Hotz. We were the only...
yeah, I know.
Oh, do you know Jeremy?
I know he is, yeah.
So we were the only two Ottawa comics. So the manager goes, "We got you a New Year's gig." And it was this huge New Year's gig, because we were making $15 a spot, and the New Year's gig was paying $50 for each, of $50 for me and $50 for Jeremy. So we were very excited, So they said, go to the Chateau Laurier, which was the biggest hotel in Ottawa, to the McKinnon room, and so we're like, okay. So we go. We're real nervous, We show up in suits and everything, and we say to the lady, like, yes, can you tell us where the McKinnon room is? And so there's no McKinnon room, So anyways, it turns out to be a room in the hotel that a guy named McKinnon so it's like, so we go to this, they give us the key. Oh yes, Mr. McKinnon gave you this key to go, so we go up to the room. It's in 402, so we open the door, it's empty. It's got like platters of food and stuff. And so then a guy comes in, we're really like nervous. And the guy goes, hi, Bill McKinnon, and he goes, I'm doing a thing for New Year's for my friends, Magical Mystery Tour. And I take them to all these sites, and we're going to go to the canal and skate on the canal. And we're going to go get some taffy at the taffy shop. And then we're going to come here third, and you're going to be the comedians. So we're like, oh, God, oh, yes, of course, yeah, that's good. And so they go, so they're going to come in and eat. We have food for them and to drink, and then you'll come out. And then so we go, where will we come out? You have to hide.
Oh my God.
So Jeremy, he was the MC. He hid behind a curtain, like in a Inspector Clouseau movie.
Yes,
he hid behind a curtain. I hid in the bathroom with the light off. So, anyways, now you hear people come in. You're like, oh Christ! It's pitch black in this bathroom. And people are drinking and eating, and then people are trying to get in the bathroom. What the hell? They can't get in the bathroom, and I'm like all afraid in the dark. And so finally, I hear like Jeremy, just jump out, and I hear his act, and he hasn't changed his act at all, for the circumstances, because we were not savvy enough to do such a thing. And so he does his real act, and then he introduces me, and I come out of the bathroom, and there's 6 guys all angry because they're waiting for the bathroom. And I go out to do my act, and everyone has like a penis noses.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I'm like in the middle of them, like Clockwork Orange, and then a woman like hits me. My first joke, she hits me with a penis nose. I'm like, oh God damn. But this is the worst. This is the one I should have told you. I went to a ski chalet. This was a corporate gig, and so I show up at the ski chalet, and it was a thing. It was a pesticide company, and they had sent me like for weeks all this pamphlets on pesticides, as if I was going to read them all and create an act from this. So I show up at the ski chalet, and I'm all nervous. I meet the guy, and he's like, here's the plan. I got a great plan. And like an idiot, I always used to go, yes, instead of no. He says, there's a guy in New York for this company. It's called Aerial Pesticides. But there's a wonder kid in New York that just started. He's in advertising. And he's a whiz kid. We're lucky to have him, And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm just agreeing with everything. He's like, but the thing is, nobody's seen him yet. He lives in New York. We're all here in Quebec. So he's like, I thought it'd be a hilarious idea to have you pretend to be him. So I'm like, yes, that would be great. Like I'm a complete idiot, I said, I agree, keep agreeing with him. And so he's like, you want something to eat? And I'm like, yeah, sure. He goes, come on, So he takes me, and then he takes me in. There's like all the people, like he takes me into the room, and I'm not prepared. And then we sit at this main table, and he goes, this is Bill, Henderson from New York. You all know him. Everybody's like, oh yeah, Bill. I heard a lot about you. I go, well, I hope none of it was too bad, And I just try to avoid any specific questions they had, anything that you got to go, wow, that's anyways, good chicken. And so the guy goes up and he goes, listen, folks, you all have heard of Bill Henderson, and we're all excited. Well, what a treat we have. We got him here, It's the first aerial pesticide franchise to meet this Bill Henderson. So here he is, everybody, Bill Henderson. So I go up, and I have no, I don't know how to change my act. I'm too green, So I just launch into my act. I don't know what I was talking about. And, the joke about murder she wrote or something. I think it was Diagnosis Murder. It was Diagnosis Murder. I remember it. It was my first joke. And so everybody's kind of puzzled, No one's really laughing. And so I talked for about 5 minutes, and then I hear a guy go, he's like, enough with the jokes. I'm like, huh? I'm all afraid. And then the idiot that thought up the idea, he runs on. He puts his arm around me. He goes, we've been having a little fun with you. It was no fun at all for him. He goes, we've been having a little fun with you. He goes, this isn't Bill Henderson at all. It's Norm MacDonald, which means nothing. It's just a different name than Bill Henderson. He goes, it's Norm MacDonald. He's a comedian. After them not laughing at me for 5 minutes. Okay, here he goes. And he runs away again.
That sucks.
Oh, it was the worst. And so then they were openly hostile after that. Like I tried to trick them, And I remember going, I mean, this is so strange to say in a stand-up set, but I'm like, it was his idea, It had devolved so badly that people yelling at me. I'm like, what about him? He shares some responsibility for this. And then I had to stay in the night because my contract called for me. When guys, like, they don't know, it's better to maybe send you to your hotel room and, But in the contract, it said I had to.
You had to stay there.
Stay. So that guy's like, well, you got to stay, even though it's an.
It sounds like a Kids in the Hall sketch. It sounds like
You're
exactly
right, yeah.
that. We're gonna put this one over on Ames Henderson. Oh, now you got to stay.
Boy, I started out Kids in the Hall. I'll never forget it because I worked with Bruce McCullough, he was a stand-up and he was in the sketch show.
Oh,
but I knew all of them, Yeah. And boy, I loved the way they did women. The way they did women.
Oh, right.
Were so spot on and funny. But I liked all of them. I was good friends with all of them. And I never forget, I was so envious. They went to New York, and then all of a sudden they're on the cover of Rolling Stone, The Future of Comedy. And that was back when magazines used to do like 25-page,
right.
stories. And I was like, wow, like the future of comedy. And, I've talked to them and they've said like, Bruce thinks the worst idea they ever had was calling themselves the Kids in the Hall because then they aged,
right.
And they had this name. But so did you like the Kids in the Hall?
Loved.
That's what you grew up on?
Well, I grew up. I mean, I watched every comedy, everything, but the Kids in the Hall was definitely. I liked a lot of British and Canadian comedy because tonally it was just a little bit different. I mean, there was good American stuff. I liked American stand-up, but I liked a lot of the British and I liked Canadian SCTV.
Yeah.
So
I think like America is great for stand-up. Is by far the best in stand-up.
Yeah.
You go to that Montreal Comedy Festival. There's people from all over the world, and
right.
then only the Canadians only the Americans are funny. But British and British and Canadians with sketch are much better.
Spectacular.
Yeah. And like Kids in the Hall was right up there with Monty Python for me,
Will you please let me know when you're doing stand-up?
Yes. Maybe you'll do it too, though.
I would.
We'll get Bob Saget.
I would do it. I would absolutely. But now I'm self-conscious because some of my material lately was a little confessional. But
Wait. Well, it might not be confessional in the way that I don't like. It might be.
Okay. Just after every joke, I'll just go, Norm. Like I'll just be really nervous.
Well, you know what? It's not fair because I only saw one guy.
I know.
And he was bad.
I know.
And Rich Scheidner told me there was a thing called confessional comedy, which I didn't know what it meant.
It's very true. It's very true.
Yeah.
It's very true.
And so yeah, I just saw one guy. So it's really unfair of me to have any decision.
But people should pick up your book.
I'm just an old man.
Based on a true story, a memoir, Norm MacDonald. Forward by Louis C.K.
Oh, Louis was so nice.
Louis.
Because they asked me, can you get guys, your friends? And, it's the worst when they ask you that. You ask your friends, and I'm like, no, please, I don't want to do that.
Will
Don't
you
make
write
me
a thing?
do
What do I
that.
write? I don't know.
Like, don't you guys know anyone? Like, God, they didn't know anyone. They're like, do you have his phone? I go, I don't. What? Can't you find anyone's phone number?
There's sort of an understanding of the apology request, which is 2 paragraphs of, I know this is dumb. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry for asking you to do this. I don't blame you if you never want to speak to me again.
Exactly.
Would you please write this thing around? And again, I know how shitty.
I know,
We don't want to.
No, he was so fantastically sweet, like, because he knew that he knew exactly what you were saying. He knew that
Took all the pressure off.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, no. He said, he was nice. He said, I'll write it and I won't have to lie. So he was very, very nice.
That's great.
And it reminded me of it because he talked about when he first met me, which I had forgotten, but then I remembered. And a very funny thing happened that night. Do we have one more moment?
Sure, one more moment. Absolutely.
I'm sorry I keep talking.
I don't mind. Listen, I absolutely. It's first of all, it was a shock to me that you remembered that we had met before.
Oh, sure, of course I remember.
And that you. I don't know. I didn't know what to expect. We have never really talked at length.
No.
And so I don't know if you're like, I got to do this podcast thing just to.
No. I remember.
It was really pleasurable talking to you.
No, I remember meeting you. I remember it well. Yeah.
Shoes. Enjoy your burrito, everyone.
Baby, great way to end it. All right, you're okay, baby.
Now leaving Nerdist.com. Enjoy your burrito.
This episode of the Nerdist Podcast was brought to you by CISO. Have you ever seen those real estate shows and you think, how much would you like to make fun of those? Well, now you don't have to. CISO did it for you. Watch the Beverly Hills real estate agents at Platinum Realty sell houses to the rich and famous. Bajillion-dollar properties stars Paul F. Tompkins. Also a list of great guest stars, including Zach Galifianakis, Nick Kroll, Busy Phillips, Casey Williams, Jack McBrayer, Patton Oswalt, Randall Park, Dave Foley, Weird Al. Check it out. It's on CISO. You can go over to SEESO.com, start your free trial. Use the promo code Nerdist to get 2 free months. CISO is available on all your favorite devices, anytime, anywhere, completely ad-free. Thanks to CISO for sponsoring this podcast.